Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
When we talk about the winter holidays, whether you call it Christmas, the solstice, or just, the end of the year, most of us jump straight to that modern commercial image.
Right. The twinkling lights, the massive sails.
And maybe the stress of assembling flat-pack furniture at 2 in the morning.
Exactly. But that glossy contemporary surface is incredibly thin.
It really is.
It's the thinnest layer of paint covering, millennia of human ritual.
And our goal in this deep dive is to peel that paint back entirely.
Yes. We're looking at the older, darker, much more earthy roots of these global winter festivals. And what we find, really, regardless of where you are on the planet, whether you're in a snowbound Scandinavian village or a tropical marketplace in the Philippines, is that the winter solstice acts as this profound liminal threshold.
I love that phrase, a liminal threshold. It suggests a doorway, right? A boundary space.
The doorway, exactly.
It's that moment where the light falters, the days are at their absolute shortest, and the boundary between the everyday world and the other world.
The spiritual, the chaotic.
It becomes incredibly porous. The human and the divine, the ancestors and the community, they're all sort of mingling at this moment.
Exactly. It's a psychological turning point shared by all of humanity. And our mission today is to give you a shortcut to understanding what binds all these wildly diverse traditions together.
Okay.
We've synthesized all these global sources, from ancient texts to modern marketing campaigns, and we've identified 3 consistent anthropological drivers.
The core reasons.
The core reasons. These drivers explain why people globally observe this season the way they do, often in ways that seem, totally counterintuitive until you understand the underlying anxiety they are trying to solve.
So these are the fundamental impulses that explain why we, say, beat a log for candy in Spain, or why we might fear a giant cat in Iceland.
Or why we gather to light a symbolic bonfire in Iraq.
Yes. Let's start with the foundation then.
Driver number 1, solar anxiety. This is the most primal and the most fundamental. It's the inherent existential fear that the sun, the literal source of warmth, of agricultural fertility, of life itself, might just keep retreating and never return.
Wow. This is not a given.
Not at all. Consequently, all the associated rituals of fire, light, and feasting are not just celebrations, they are active cosmic interventions.
What do you mean by interventions?
They are human actions designed to compel the sun to halt its retreat and start its journey back toward the summer.
So it's not just a party, it's mandatory, high-stakes metaphysical labor.
Yes. Where the survival of the community depends on successful human intervention.
Incredible.
Precisely. Driver number 2 is the sociological imperative of the visiting spirit.
Okay.
Because the darkness and cold are so pervasive, they become populated by entities, spirits, monsters, or grotesque figures that are actively allowed or invited to invade the domestic sphere.
And these are the social police, the ones who define community morality.
Yes. They aren't just bogeymen for children. They enforce social norms, they demand hospitality, and they clearly define community boundaries.
So they're judges.
They serve as judges and administrators of the reward and punishment system, which is especially critical when resources are scarce and social cohesion is paramount to survival.
The stick that motivates the carrot.
You could say that. And finally, the third driver, which explains the messy reality of the traditions we see today.
Which is?
Syncretism. This is the constant process of hybridization. We see it most often where the Christian liturgical calendar, particularly Christmas, is superimposed upon and frequently subsumed by much older indigenous solstice rites.
So the blend?
A blend. And the resulting traditions are unique regional hybrids that seamlessly weave together pagan necessity and Christian theology, creating folklore that is deeply rooted in local necessity.
When you put it all together, you realize that the man in a Santa suit and, say, a Hopi sunshield dancer are actually solving the same ancient human problem.
They are.
So let's start with that fundamental driver, solar anxiety, because it forces people to step up and actively manage the cosmos.
And we begin in northern Arizona with the Hopi soil ceremony, which illustrates solar anxiety better than almost any other tradition on Earth.
Okay.
For the Hopi people, the winter solstice, or Soy Luna, is a moment of profound cosmic crisis.
A crisis.
Yes. It's not a celebration of the sun returning. It is an elaborate, solemn, metaphysical intervention designed explicitly to turn back the sun toward its summer path, thus ensuring the continuity of life.
So if they fail, the world stays dark. That's the belief.
That is the core anxiety. And what makes this intervention so compelling is the preparation itself. It speaks to the gravity of the event.
How so?
Soil marks the beginning of the Katsina season, the period when these powerful spiritual beings descend from the San Francisco peaks to live and interact with the Hopi people. During the weeks leading up to the solstice, the elders meticulously craft pajos, or prayer sticks.
These aren't just decorations, right?
Not at all. They are sacred instruments, often using specific feathers from eagles or hawks and bound with pinion needles, designed to bless the entire community, the livestock, and the future crops.
And the physical architecture of the ritual is key here, specifically the kivas.
Absolutely. The kivas are the sacred underground chambers.
They symbolize the womb of the earth, right?
Womb of the earth. The place where life-giving forces reside during the darkest period. They're ritually opened and cleaned for the ceremonies, emphasizing that this intervention is happening deep within the Earth's regenerative core.
And the atmosphere inside must be just intense.
Intense is the word. Dark, warm, and highly acoustic, concentrating the spiritual energy of everyone participating.
And within those kivas, shielded from public view, there is a literal dramatic enactment of this struggle for renewal.
There is. The rituals involve the second phase of creation reenactments. They focus intensely on manipulating effigies of the Palulu code.
The plumed snake.
The plumed snake, a deity connected deeply to water and subterranean power. These effigies are manipulated like puppets, sometimes roaring or moving to accept offerings of cornmeal.
So the offering is a direct plea.
It's an essential prayer for rain and fertility, ensuring the Earth's womb will give birth to the next cycle of crops.
It's just this overwhelming sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
The Hopi aren't spectators to the cosmos. They are the active managers ensuring its mechanics continue.
That's the core takeaway. It's an active assertion of human responsibility.
Now, if we cross the globe to Iran, we find a sort of an echo of this ancient solar anxiety in Shabi Yalda, or Yalda Night.
Yalda Night is one of the most ancient surviving celebrations tied to this phenomenon, rooted deeply in Zoroastrianism. It specifically celebrates the birth of Mithra, the goddess of light, and the critical moment when light overcomes the forces of darkness.
But the method of intervention is a little different from the Hopi's active management.
It is. Their strategy is endurance.
So the solution to the dark is to stay awake through it.
That's the core ritual of endurance and vigilance. Families gather not just to feast, but to stay awake through the longest night, actively protecting each other from the various evil forces associated with the pervasive darkness.
The community itself is the shield.
The communal gathering itself serves as the defense line against chaos, and food plays a crucial symbolic role in this vigilance.
Let's talk about the ritual foods because they're very specific.
The red fruits are paramount: pomegranates and watermelons.
Why red?
Their deep crimson color symbolizes the glow of life, the vitality of blood, and crucially, the vibrant color of the dawn that everyone is waiting for.
Ah, I see.
You consume the dawn in a symbolic act to ensure that the actual dawn is compelled to return. It's a literal ingestion of life and light in the face of maximum darkness.
Beyond the feast, I'm really fascinated by the intellectual ritual of the night.
Ah, the bibliomancy. The long protected night is traditionally spent reading poetry, specifically from the Divan of Hafez, the great 14th century Persian poet. An elder will open the book at random, and the poem on that page is interpreted as the family's fortune or spiritual guidance for the year ahead.
So it combines that communal vigilance with, like, a sophisticated spiritual prognostication.
It does. It turns a night of potential fear into a night of literary communion.
That transition from the solemn cosmic duty of the Hopi to the communal poetic vigilance of the Iranians makes perfect sense thematically. Now, let's look at a similar ritual of illumination, but one where that syncretism driver is clearly at work. St. Lucia Day in Scandinavia.
Right, celebrated on December 13th.
And that date is really important historically.
It's crucial. Before the shift to the Gregorian calendar, this date corresponded exactly to the Winter Solstice, the deepest night. The ancient anxiety was centered here in Lissinetten, the most dangerous night of the year.
And what better way to break the deepest hold of darkness than to contain its terror with a visible source of light?
Fire.
Fire on your head.
It is visually dramatic. A young girl is chosen to portray Lucia, wearing a white gown which symbolizes purity or the winter snow, a red sash, and that defining feature, a crown of burning candles.
And she leads a procession.
She does, bringing light and nourishment, saffron buns, and coffee to the community, often before dawn.
You mentioned syncretism. This is nominally honoring Saint Lucy, the Christian martyr, but the name overlay is key.
It's a classic example of containment. The figure of Lucia, the gentle Christian lightbringer, is overlaid onto the much older Norse female spirit Lucy.
Who was not so gentle.
Not at all. Lucy, or Luciferta, was a dangerous, often malicious entity. She was associated with the uncontrolled, chaotic, and dangerous long nights when the boundaries were porous, leading processions of the dead or unruly spirits.
So by placing the saint over the spirit,
By placing the image of the saint over the dangerous pagan spirit, the ritual uses light to both memorialize the dark past and assert control over the present danger.
so you take the terrifying chaos of the unbridled dark and you domesticate it into a ritual of service and warmth.
Precisely. It's a brilliant way to manage solar anxiety by redressing the ancient monster in the clothes of the new faith.
And speaking of extreme environments, we have to mention a unique case of solar anxiety that actually happens in June during our summer, Antarctica midwinter.
Right. For the international researchers and staff stationed at permanent bases on Antarctica, the true winter solstice occurs in June.
Which marks the exact midpoint of the long polar night.
Yes, and this is a celebration necessitated entirely by extreme environment and isolation. It's focused completely on psychological survival.
They don't have an ancient calendar tradition to rely on, so they have to create new rituals of community and survival.
They do. They break the isolation with highly formalized rituals. They hold these elaborate formal dinners, saving the best provisions for this moment. They exchange handmade gifts as there is no consumer economy.
And they have rituals of boundary defiance, like the polar plunge.
The polar plunge. They cut a hole in the ice to jump into the freezing ocean. This is an active defiance of the cold, an assertion of human will against the environment.
The sources also suggest a darker, more psychological ritual as well.
Yes. There is a documented tradition of watching isolation-themed horror films, particularly classics like The Shining or The Thing.
Wow.
It's a fascinating piece of dark humor. By consuming a narrative about isolation and psychological breakdown, they are creating a shared catharsis, externalizing and managing the very real psychological strain of continuous darkness and extreme confinement.
From the challenge of the returning sun, we transition straight into our second major anthropological driver, the sociological imperative of the visiting spirit. We're moving from cosmic mechanics to community policing.
If solar anxiety is about managing the universe, this driver is about managing human behavior when resources are tight. The winter spirits don't just lurk. They actively invade the domestic sphere to test its inhabitants' worthiness, demanding hospitality and enforcing order.
And in the far north, these enforcers are often genuinely terrifying.
They really are. Let's start with the Inuit Nalujit from Labrador and Nunavut.
These are figures of visceral fear, not cartoonish benevolence.
They are the personification of the raw, dangerous Arctic. The Nalujit are fearsome figures who emerge from the sea ice or the darkness on January 6th, which is traditionally observed as Old Christmas Day.
And the name itself, Nalujik.
It's translated as heathen or non-believer, which immediately sets them outside the boundaries of the polite Christianized community. They are literally the untamed wild invading the civilized space.
How do they manifest this wild nature? What do they actually look like?
Their appearance is primal and intentionally grotesque. They're dressed in tattered, rough animal furs, sealskin, caribou hide, and wear terrifying masks.
Masks?
Skeletal, asymmetrical, or jagged masks, sometimes with massive, exaggerated teeth. They move erratically, representing the uncontrolled, lethal power of nature.
And what is their mission within the community?
They carry sticks or weapons, and they hunt. They chase children and sometimes adults through the snowy streets.
And the lore is very specific about who they're hunting.
It's explicit. They are not just looking for naughty children, but for those who have been lazy, disobedient, or who have failed to contribute to the collective well-being during the past year. They are judges demanding accountability.
This sounds like a system designed to encourage survival skills.
It is. The ritual mechanism for appeasement is crucial. If a child is caught by a Nalujik, they must demonstrate courage and quick thinking by performing a song in the Inuit language.
So you have to sing for your supper or your safety.
Exactly. If the spirit is pleased by the performance, a sign of respect and mastery, it may toss the child candy or small gifts. If the spirit is unpleased, the child may be struck or chased further.
So this tradition is a powerful tool for reinforcing courage, cultural literacy, and community bonds through a shared but controlled experience of fear.
It ensures only the resourceful survive. The community collectively engineers terror to produce resilience.
Now let's move from Arctic necessity to a purely economic form of social enforcement in Iceland,
Yeah.
the Jólakötturinn, or Yule Cap.
Oh, yes.
This figure has a deeply embedded labor policy.
Yeah. The Jólakötturinn is the clearest example we have of a mythological figure whose primary anthropological function is to drive pre-industrial economic production.
So it's a giant, vicious cat that stalks the countryside on Christmas Eve.
Right. And its threat is extremely specific. It devours anyone who has not received a new piece of clothing for Christmas.
The lack of a new pair of mittens literally makes you dinner for a monster.
Literally.
We have to unpack the context here. Why clothes? What's that about?
We must remember the extreme conditions of Icelandic winter. The survival of the community depended heavily on the successful processing of wool, which was often the main winter labor for everyone in the household, including children.
So shearing, cleaning, spinning, weaving.
Continuous, difficult, and laborious work, often done by weak light. New clothing was expensive, it represented hard work, and it was essential for protection against the elements.
So the Yule Cat myth wasn't a warning about being rude. It was a threat about being unproductive.
Absolutely. The myth functioned as an urgent motivator. The threat of the cat was a powerful existential incentive for everyone to finish their allotted amount of winter work before the holiday.
So if you worked hard, you got new clothes.
And you got symbolic protection from the cat. If you were lazy, you were vulnerable. It's a perfect, chilling illustration of how a deep cultural belief can regulate the morality and production quotas of an entire society.
That connection folklore as labor enforcement is stunning.
It is.
Let's look at the European punishers now, starting with the French counterpoint to St. Nicholas. Père Fouettard, the father whipper.
Père Fouettard embodies the darker side of this sociological imperative. He is the shadowy counterpart who accompanies the benevolent St. Nicholas on December 6th. While St. Nicholas asks the children to recount their virtues and distributes gifts, Père Fouettard, well, he distributes the consequences.
Coal, potatoes, or, most notoriously, beatings with his bundle of sticks.
He is consistently described as ragged and fearsome.
Yes, very menacing. Ragged clothing, covered in soot, dark, untrimmed beard, carrying his whip or switches. His whole presence is just a visceral warning against misbehavior.
It is. But his origin myth is truly where the punishment system gains its profound moral authority based on a breach of the most basic social contract.
And it is a gruesome myth.
It is gruesome and intentional. Père Fouettard was supposedly a butcher or innkeeper who, during a famine, decided to murder 3 wealthy boys who stopped at his establishment.
He slit their throats.
Slit their throats and then salted their bodies in a tub, planning to sell them as meat to desperate travelers.
Oh, wow.
But St. Nicholas miraculously discovered the crime, resurrected the children, and, as divine punishment, condemned the butcher to eternal servitude.
So he has to accompany the saint forever.
Perpetually reminding the community of the extreme lethal consequence of breaching fundamental human social norms, especially those related to hospitality and the sanctity of life.
That's fascinating. The punishment figure isn't just about being naughty. He represents the resurrection of the worst possible societal crime, guaranteeing that even in the chaos of winter, those core moral structures hold.
Exactly. He is the physical manifestation of consequence.
Now, shifting south to Italy, the visiting figure is La Befana. She arrives later, on Epiphany Eve, January 5th, flying on a broom.
La Befana is the Italian gift giver, often depicted as a friendly but dusty old witch. Her story is fundamentally one of spiritual opportunity lost and eternal regret.
Right. The legend says the 3 wise men stopped at her cottage and invited her to join them.
To seek out the Christ child, but she was too consumed with her endless necessary household chores and she refused.
That is a classic conflict.
Yeah.
The spiritual journey versus the immediate, pressing demands of the hearth and domesticity.
And her penance is her eternal duty. Later, overwhelmed by regret, she sets out with a sack of gifts. But having missed the star, she can never find the true child.
So she visits every house on the night of January 5th.
Leaving candy for good children and coal, often just black rock candy for the naughty ones, hoping to find the baby in one of the homes.
What archetype does she fulfill within the anthropological framework?
She is the powerful ancestress archetype. She's profoundly linked to the hearth and the cyclical transition of the year. Her famous broom is not just for flying, it symbolizes her primary function, sweeping away the refuse and troubles of the past year as the new year truly begins on Epiphany.
She cleanses the threshold for the community.
She is the domestic sentinel of time.
Before we move to the next section, we have to look at a political inversion of the visiting spirit. Dead Moroz, or Grandfather Frost, in Russia.
And his granddaughter.
Right. So Dead Moroz is distinct from Western Santa Claus in almost every detail.
He's tall and slender, not portly. He wears long, flowing robes, traditionally blue or silver, carries a magical staff symbolizing ice or power, and is pulled by a troika.
A three-horse sleigh.
A high-speed sleigh, yes.
Yeah.
And crucially, he enters through the front door, maintaining the formality of a visiting dignitary.
And the unique detail is his travel companion, the Snow Maiden.
Snegorotchka, the Snow Maiden. She is Dead Moroz's granddaughter and constant companion. She originates from Slavic fairy tales and folklore, often tragically fated to melt when she falls in love or when the fires of spring become too warm.
And her presence adds this deep layer of indigenous myth and kind of a touch of melancholy to the celebration.
It does, but their modern prominence is a classic case study in state-mandated syncretism.
Driven by Soviet policy, right?
Exactly. After the 1917 revolution, the Bolshevik government banned religious Christmas as being bourgeois and counter-revolutionary.
By the 1930s.
By the 1930s, they realized the profound human need for winter ritual and celebration. So the state consciously rehabilitated Dead Moroz, stripped him entirely of his religious associations, and turned him into a secular icon for the New Year's Novi God celebration.
A politically engineered icon.
Yeah.
And what was the result of that?
New Year's Eve became the primary gift-giving holiday in Russia, replacing Christmas. Dead Moroz became a symbol of winter and state progress, appearing primarily at public, communal gatherings and children's parties.
So it demonstrates the government's ability to completely restructure the annual cycle of ritual while still fulfilling that sociological imperative for seasonal celebration.
Precisely.
We've established the need for cosmic management and the enforcement of social order. Now we move to our third driver, syncretism, inversion, and the language of food and fertility.
Which often manifests as a temporary cathartic suspension of the rules.
The societal safety valve.
The safety valve is opened. Allowing chaos, reversal of roles, or slightly scandalous behavior is essential during the transitionary period so that order can be reasserted strongly afterward.
We find a powerful example of inversion and cultural autonomy in the U.S. South and the Caribbean with the tradition of John Canoe.
John Canoe was absolutely vital during the Christmas season, particularly for enslaved African Americans in 19th century North Carolina and the West Indies.
And this tradition is a magnificent example of cultural retention and adaptation, right?
Directly linking the community back to West African masquerade forms, even under the brutal institution of chattel slavery.
How did it function as a ritual of inversion in that oppressive context?
During the brief period of relaxed labor requirements around Christmas, participants, primarily men, would wear these incredibly elaborate, often deliberately terrifying costumes.
Made of rags, colorful paper, animal skins.
And fierce horned masks. They would form a noisy troupe, dancing and drumming wildly through the plantations and towns, asserting a temporary but profound cultural and physical autonomy.
And this assertion translated directly into economic gain.
It did. The performance was disruptive and culturally compelling enough that the enslaved performers held the attention of the white elite and demanded gifts of money or alcohol.
So it was resource redistribution under duress.
A temporary claiming of agency and wealth. It was a space for licensed misrule that was critical for psychological survival. Although the tradition later declined due to anti-masking laws designed to suppress black gatherings, its historical presence clearly links the American South to the broader Afro-Atlantic world of structured chaos.
We see a similar, though far more domesticated, descendant of that misrule in the Philadelphia Mummers Parade on New Year's Day.
The Mummers Parade formalizes older European customs known as bell-snickling or mumming, brought over by various immigrant groups. Historically, these were groups of disguised, often drunken men roaming the streets during the 12 days of Christmas, performing improvised skits and demanding food and drink. The chaos was inherent.
I read that the chaos became so pervasive the city had to step in just to stop the violence.
It was pure urban misrule in the 19th century. Heavy drinking, costume groups confronting each other, sometimes even the discharge of firearms into the air. The city's repeated attempts to ban it failed. So, the 1901 institution of a city-sponsored, formalized parade was an attempt to channel that chaotic energy into an organized, spectator-friendly civic event.
Domesticating the wild spirits, much like St. Lucia domesticates Lucy.
Exactly.
And the parade still maintains a unique, almost ritualistic dedication to specific musical rules.
Yes, the tradition of the string band's division is fascinating. They strictly prohibit brass instruments.
No trumpets, no trombones.
None. This self-imposed rule forces them to rely on saxophones, banjos, violins, accordions, and percussion, creating a uniquely American soundscape that is central to this working-class ethnic expression. It's chaos controlled by highly specific, self-imposed rules.
From urban chaos, let's go back to the eerie wildness of the visiting spirit ritual in Wales, the Mari Lwyd, or Grey Mare.
The Mari Lwyd is a spectacular embodiment of the chaotic outside world demanding entry. The artifact itself is central. A real horse's skull.
Real skull.
A real horse's skull, often cleaned and polished, mounted on a pole, fitted with glass eyes and dramatically snapping jaws, all draped with a concealing white sheet. It is genuinely unsettling to see approach in the dark.
And the ritual is entirely centered on a battle of wit, not physical strength.
The core ritual is the prunco, a highly ritualized rhyming battle, or flighting competition. The Mari Lwyd group stands outside the house and sings a request for entry, usually in Welsh.
And the people inside have to respond in rhyme.
They must sing a refusal using clever counter-rhymes. This verbal sparring continues, sometimes for a substantial amount of time, until the inhabitants run out of counter-rhymes, proving themselves unable to defend their domestic space verbally.
A failure of poetry leads to the invasion of the horse.
Precisely. When they lose, they must admit the horse. Once inside, the Mari Lwyd causes joyful, ritualistic chaos, snapping its jaws, chasing children, while the accompanying group is rewarded with food and ale.
So anthropologically, this ritual embodies the essential negotiation between the wild, skeletal, cold world outside and the ordered, warm, hospitable world inside.
The chaos of winter must be admitted and fed to ensure the order of spring.
That sets the perfect stage for the most striking example of inversion and fertility we are going to discuss, the scatological fertility of Catalonia. This is where we have that profound aha moment about what we expect from a holiday ritual.
Catalonia provides a powerful conceptual inversion. While Western traditions often sanitize the gift-giving process into clean, magical delivery, Catalan folklore directly links biological functions, specifically defecation, to profound symbols of fertility, luck, and agricultural renewal.
Let's start with the Tio de Nadal, the cagatio, the pooping log.
Right. From the Feast of the Immaculate Conception on December 8th, a hollow log is brought into the home. It is personified.
Given a face, a little hat.
A painted smiling face, a traditional Catalan baratina cap, and covered with a blanket to keep it warm. Critically, children must feed it small treats, nuts, and fruit nightly. It's honored as a domestic guest that absorbs the year's bounty.
And then the climax on Christmas Eve.
On Christmas Eve, the children participate in the ritual expulsion. They beat the log with sticks, while singing specific demanding songs, ordering it to defecate gifts.
And the song is pretty explicit.
Shit log, shit nougats, hazelnuts, and Mato cheese. The beating is a symbolic act of demanding the return of the sustenance absorbed by the log. When they lift the blanket, they find the gifts, traditionally turon and other sweets, that the log has pooped.
The genius of this symbolism is in the direct link. The consumption of food by the log leads directly to the production of consumable abundance under the blanket.
It celebrates digestion and biological reality as the engine of renewal.
And this theme is reinforced by the second major figure, the kegener, or the defecator.
This figurine is placed, not hidden, but present in the traditional Catalan nativity scene.
Right there among the Holy Family and the animals.
Always present, usually in a back corner, sometimes slightly obscured, but fundamentally participating. The kegener is typically a Catalan peasant squatting with his trousers down.
And far from being seen as crude or disrespectful, the figure is considered good luck.
It is good luck. Why? Because the visible act of defecation fertilizes the earth, ensuring a good harvest and agricultural prosperity for the coming year. It is a profound acknowledgement that life and growth require the messy process of decay and biological return.
It fundamentally grounds the spiritual moment of the nativity in the essential agrarian reality of life and death cycles.
It contrasts the high theological drama with the low, shared biology of existence. It argues that the miraculous must be sustained by the mundane.
And in the modern world, this figure has become a vehicle for potent social commentary and satire.
The The Kegener is now mass-produced in the likenesses of politicians, celebrities, sports figures, even royalty. The act of placing a high-status figure in this vulnerable base biological act serves as a highly effective tool of satire.
It grounds them in a shared human reality.
It reminds the community that regardless of status, we are all biological and subject to the cycles of the earth. It uses ancient fertility symbolism for contemporary political leveling.
Moving from Catalonia to Latin America, we see syncretism blending faith, agricultural necessity, and the critical sociological value of hospitality, starting with Mexico's Las Posadas.
Las Posadas is a powerful 9-night ritual running from December 16th to 24th, reenacting Mary and Joseph's difficult search for shelter in Bethlehem.
And it's a dynamic, mobile community event.
Very much so. A procession carries images of the Holy Family, or sometimes people dressed as them, to designated houses each night.
The ritualized song exchange emphasizes that core sociological imperative: collective responsibility and hospitality.
The exchange of song is highly structured. The pilgrims outside sing to ask for lodging and are initially refused by the innkeepers inside.
And that rejection is crucial.
It's crucial. It reminds the community of the difficulty of the journey and the dangers of closed hearts. Finally, the door is opened, the rejection turns into acceptance, and the subsequent celebration, the fiesta, begins.
And the 9 nights represent the 9 months of gestation.
Exactly, linking the anticipation of Christ's birth directly to the natural cycles of fertility.
And the piñata is the culmination of this nightly communal gathering.
The traditional piñata is a striking 7-pointed star. These points symbolize the 7 deadly sins. The ritual involves breaking the star with a stick, symbolizing faith conquering temptation, and the reward is the pouring out of blessings.
In the form of candy, fruit, and coins.
To the gathered community. The whole sequence reinforces the necessary structure of trial, virtue, and collective reward.
In Oaxaca, Mexico, we have perhaps the most unusual artistic tradition of the season, Noche de Rabanos, the Night of the Radishes.
A true synthesis of colonialism and indigenous art.
It's a spectacular yet fleeting festival held on December 23rd.
It has its origin in the colonial period when Spanish friars taught indigenous farmers to carve radishes to attract customers to the Christmas market. It has since evolved into a high art form.
But these are definitely not your average grocery store radishes.
No. For this festival, farmers must grow special varieties of radishes, leaving them in the ground for months to achieve enormous, dense, and contorted sizes. They are completely inedible.
And what do the artisans do with them?
They carve intricate, detailed, and often sprawling scenes. Nativity dioramas, vignettes from Mayan legends, Oaxacan history, using the dramatic visual contrast of the bright red skin and the pristine white interior.
And the artistry is ephemeral, lasting only hours.
Since the radishes wilt and spoil quickly, the exhibition lasts only 1 night. The festival celebrates the deep, specialized skill of the farmer and the artisan, creating a powerful fusion of colonial agriculture and indigenous aesthetic tradition, centered on a humble yet vital root vegetable.
We see a similar profound link between faith and local soil in the Philippines with Simbangabi, the core of what is considered the world's longest Christmas season.
This involves a novena 9 consecutive dawn masses starting December 16.
And the time is crucial. Why the early hour?
This tradition originated during the Spanish colonial era as a necessary compromise. Friars held Mass at 4 a.m. to accommodate Filipino farmers who had to work the rice fields before sunrise, when the dew was still on the ground and the heat was manageable.
So the religious ritual was physically synchronized with the demands of rice cultivation.
Absolutely. The necessity of agriculture dictated the structure of the liturgy, and the tradition persists today, anchored by the essential post-Mass feasting.
Where they eat indigenous agricultural staples.
Yes, like bibingka, a subtly sweet rice cake baked in clay pots lined with banana leaves, and puto bumbong, a sticky purple rice cake steamed in bamboo tubes. This culinary ritual connects the spiritual preparation for Christmas directly to the fertility and productivity of the local soil.
That brings us to our final section, where we look at the modern global hybrid Asia and Oceania, where the drivers of folklore are often completely reassembled and driven by consumerism, linguistic chants, or extreme environmental inversion.
Asia provides compelling evidence of how Western traditions are adopted, but only after they are fully divorced from their original religious or social context, usually to fill a cultural void.
And the prime example.
Yeah.
Japan and the phenomenon of Kentucky Fried Chicken for Christmas.
The origin story is legendary within modern marketing. In 1974, KFC Japan launched a highly successful marketing campaign. Kurisumasu ni wa Kentucky.
Kentucky for Christmas.
Kentucky for Christmas. This occurred in a country with no native Christian Christmas tradition and a general confusion over what Westerners typically ate on the day. KFC successfully created a secular, Western-adjacent tradition where none existed.
And it has moved from a marketing gimmick to a deeply ingrained annual ritual.
It is now mandatory. Millions of Japanese families pre-order their party barrels weeks, sometimes months in advance. This consumption of fried chicken has become the secular liturgy.
Usually paired with Christmas cake.
A light sponge cake topped with whipped cream and strawberries, which is another tradition entirely foreign to Japan, but adopted with enthusiasm.
We must also address the crucial difference in social context.
Yes. Unlike the family-centric Christmas of the West, Christmas in Japan is primarily a romantic holiday for couples. It functions much like Valentine's Day, with intricate gift exchanges and specialized dates.
So the adoption of this foreign holiday filled a need for a secular romantic winter event.
Completely separate from its religious or familial origins.
We see a similar consumer-driven trend in China, but with a tradition based purely on a pun.
The peace apple, Ping Guo tradition, is perhaps the purest example of grassroots folklore evolving from linguistic homophony. Christmas Eve in Mandarin is Ping Ye,
Peaceful night.
and the word for apple is Ping Guo.
Peaceful night, apple. The phonetic similarity is enough.
The similarity in sound sparked a custom among younger Chinese generations of divvying apples on Christmas Eve. These apples are now a premium commodity, often wrapped in colorful paper, printed with messages, and sold at inflated prices.
It's a grassroots commercial evolution that grounds a foreign holiday entirely in the local language, creating new meaning and an opportunity for social exchange.
It proves that folklore is constantly being created in the marketplace.
Now let's swing to the Southern Hemisphere, where the challenge isn't adapting the purpose of the holiday, but in dealing with the fundamental environmental inversion. Celebrating a winter holiday in the height of summer heat.
Australia and New Zealand faced a major cultural conflict. How do you embrace the aesthetics of cold weather, snow, heavy food, when it's 90 degrees outside?
You have to adapt.
They had to fundamentally adapt colonial traditions to local reality.
So the heavy roast dinner must go.
It is largely supplanted by the Christmas BBQ on the beach or in the backyard. Fresh seafood is paramount. In Australia, the essential Christmas food, replacing the roast turkey, is prawns.
Cooked on the barbie or consumed cold.
And Santa himself must adapt to the environmental reality.
Right, he wears board shorts and sunglasses.
Occasionally arriving on a surfboard or driving a ute pulled by kangaroos, maintaining the archetype while flipping the aesthetic.
And in New Zealand, the national symbol of the season embraces the local flora.
It's the magnificent Patukawa tree. This tree blooms with brilliant crimson brush-like flowers in December, transforming the landscape and earning it the cherished title of the New Zealand Christmas tree.
So it visually aligns the celebration with the local environment.
Grounding the foreign festival in the indigenous seasonal calendar.
Let's look at Fiji, where Christmas is a deeply communal event centered on the Lovo feast.
The lovo is the traditional method of cooking using an earth oven, and it becomes the centerpiece of the Christmas community gathering. A pit is dug and lined with white-hot river stones. Food, including pork, taro root, and balsami, is meticulously wrapped in banana leaves and buried on top of the stones to slow cook for hours, while the community is typically at church.
So the uncovering of the Lovo, the act of releasing the food from the earth, must be the culmination.
It is the great communal moment. The feast, accompanied by make, traditional dance, and kava ceremonies, fully integrates the Christian holiday into the traditional communal structure of village life, linking the celebration directly to the land, the ancestors, and the deep values of sharing and collective effort.
To bring our journey full circle, let's end with one of the most powerful and poignant manifestations of that primal solar anxiety and the persistence of faith: the bonfire of thorns in Iraq and Syria.
This tradition is observed among ancient Christian communities, such as the Chaldean and Assyrian peoples, particularly those historically living in the Nineveh Plains. On Christmas Eve, families gather outside their homes and meticulously light a sizable pile of dried thorn bushes.
This isn't just about warmth, but about divination and survival.
It is absolutely a form of divination. The way the fire burns predicts the family's fortune for the coming year. If the thorn bushes burn completely and quickly to ash, it is interpreted as a sign of good luck and prosperity.
And if they don't?
If they struggle to catch or leave unburnt remnants, it is a warning of hardship.
And the ritual involves a physical assertion of hope after the burning.
Once the fire dies down and the coals are cooling, family members often take turns jumping over the ashes 3 times, making a silent wish for the coming year.
It's so powerful.
For these communities, which have faced intense political instability and persecution in the Nineveh Plains, this persistence of the fire ritual, this literal creation of light and heat, is a deeply poignant symbol of survival and the persistence of faith.
It echoes that original fundamental solar anxiety. The light must return, even in the darkest, most challenging times.
If we connect all these diverse examples to the bigger picture, this global celebration of the winter season is a profound testament to cultural resilience. From the solemn, active cosmic management of the Hopi, who are working to turn the sun back, to the necessary chaos of the Philadelphia mummers and the complex social policing of the Nulujuit, the core impulse is always the same: confronting the dangerous transition of the year with human noise, light, and structured community.
And we constantly see that third driver, syncretism, at work. The new faith, whether it's Christianity, communism, or consumerism, must wear the clothes and fulfill the functions of the old faith.
The indigenous, local, or pagan rites, in order to survive locally. The old spirits demand respect and adherence. They enforce the necessary rules.
Right.
The Naludrik must be sung to for safety. The Marilud must be sung into the house before she wreaks havoc. The Namahaj demons of Japan must be pacified with sake and mochi. These frightening, often grotesque figures are the essential guardians of the threshold, reminding us that winter requires preparation, courage, and collective ritual to be endured. The logic of chaos is often the logic of survival.
So what does this all mean? It means the logistics of the Yola Katuran demanding new clothes for economic stability and the deep philosophy of the Kagatio pooping nougats for agricultural fertility are both trying to solve similar ancient human problems rooted in fear and scarcity. The costumes we wear, the food we eat, the songs we sing, and the monsters we choose to fear are the primary tools we use to build community and assert human order in the face of the ultimate darkness. So here's the final provocative thought for you to chew on. Take a moment to consider which of these 3 primary drivers, the need to actively manage the sun, the presence of a punitive enforcer, or the ritualized consumption of specific fertility-linked foods, is most persistent in your own local holiday customs, even if it's completely hidden beneath a modern, sanitized surface. What ancient, pre-modern anxiety is your current tradition still unconsciously trying to solve?